to you. Hi, Nishanth. Some good things do come out of long, tragic commutes.
I can't watch a video on metro because I used to feel nauseous. And I started listening to audiobooks and podcasts. I can consume a podcast and I want to know about something.
Yeah.
But 15 hours a week, you'll just get bored.
He called me like, yeah, this is the idea. Like, I think a non-music audio platform, it will have a lot of genres of content.
So I was actually interviewing for Meta at that time.
You gave up Mark Zuckerberg for these two. How does the name come about?
Oh, it's entertainment in your pocket. So just call it Pocket FM.
Idea of fictionalized, serialized content on audio is still something that, takes you a little bit by surprise.
Fiction on radio used to be a big thing.
Big thing.
Like the soap operas, the terminology came
Yes.
from radio,
Yes.
not from video,
Yes.
right?
But I think the good thing is like use cases are already there. That the whole your high so busy years of free use cases always there. Well, just coming back, my cab driver was like in Kannada language. He was listening to some Super Yodha story. I was like, is that Pocket FM? One of the creators, she had created a 20-hour story called Kitni Mohabbat Hai. And we have been doing this for 1 year.
Huh.
And we launched this show. The retention is like 12%.
How much are people willing to spend?
Users don't want to overcommit. I mean, if you ask them to pay 300 rupees upfront, no one pays for that.
Okay.
There's a sachet, that's how sachet works.
Right.
People are actually, users can buy like sachets for 2-3 rupees, but no one is going to buy a bottle of that.
What, 1,000+ crores today?
2000.
2,000 crores as of today. What's new
Yeah.
about the new era?
So I think creators have never got distribution without gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So literally one of the creator, I mean, she's like from Chhattisgarh and she's just like literally a student, right? Her story is now present in German, it's present in UK, it's present in US. What you have to think is like from day zero, I'm building for the world.
Hello and welcome to the Young Turks Reloaded podcast. I'm Shereen Bhan. Very often on the show, we bring you stories of category creators. And today is one such story. And let me explain to you why. In a world of video, here was a startup that decided to bet on audio streaming. Not just that, they decided to bet on audio streaming, but bring in entertainment of fictionalized content to your pocket, quite literally. We're talking about Pocket FM, started by 3 co-founders. And let me just give you some numbers to take you through the story that began in 2018 and where they find themselves today. Over 100 billion minutes of streaming, 1,000 crore plus in revenues as of today, and 200 million users plus and counting. So to talk to us about making that high conviction bet on audio streaming and more importantly, what the road ahead looks like for Pocket FM, please join me in welcoming on the program Rohan Nayak, Prateek Dixit and Nishanth. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us here on the program. Before I talk to you about Pocket FM, I want to talk to you about the three of you. The two of you specifically started your friendship or your journey together in IIT Kharagpur. And I want to start with that, Rohan. Your first time meeting Nishanth.
We were in the same department in IIT Kharagpur. He was like a very studious guy. So
I think it is opposite, but
So he was actually the studious guy, Nishanth. Were you actually the studious guy?
he got 99% in 12th or something.
You got 99% in 12th.
And I was like, what is 99%?
I'm feeling terrible already.
Right. So I think we met in we're the same department, and I think sort of we hit it off because we wanted to do something from a very from first.
So
year
you
itself.
knew even at IIT Kharagpur that you wanted to do a startup.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to discuss a lot of ideas, a lot of random ideas, all the time.
What was the most random idea that you thought of?
I don't know. I think one was some. I think.
I think so. One of the ideas was in so we were in mechanical engineering and we were so we used to go to the labs with a lot of complex machines and all, and some sort of issues used to come. So we used to think we'll buy an automated maintenance product, like a software which can predict, when the machine is going to go bad. And then we pitched it to the professor. They were like, wow, that's sort of a visionary, but it's all practical. So like, how do you?
Yeah.
I think these kind of like very random ideas we used to discuss after the class. Both of us used to go and cycle with different halls.
Huh.
We used to like literally stand in the road and debate like 30 minutes, 1 hour. What's the next idea going to be?
Huh.
Right? I think that was
At some point, we debated like that. I mean, at that point, we wanted to build something like, I think, Practo.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, then we're like, yeah, this is it. I think we should do it or something like that. And I think then, like, obviously, we didn't. And
So why didn't you?
I think we just debate ideas, to be honest. And I think it was more of a conviction, right? You debate it out for 2 nights. You feel that
This
okay,
is
yes,
it.
this is it. But third night, you're like, yeah, maybe not, right? So I think that conviction is what was lacking in a lot of these ideas used to brainstorm about.
And then, of course, you decided to go your separate ways and got into jobs. And then you met via a job and you were colleagues, Prateek.
Yeah, so I think I met Nishanth during our Flipkart days. We both started our journey from Flipkart. So Nishanth continued his startup sort of like passion then as well. So he continued, and we used to discuss a lot of these startup ideas in Flipkart as well, literally every day, right? And sort of like we kept on moving to different startups. So from Flipkart to we went to another startup, a very small startup. We were the founding members there. Then we went to Grofers, which is now Blinkit.
Blinkit, yeah.
So we're there together for 6 years, discussing a lot of ideas. And then, of course, right, I met Rohan as well through Nishanth. And then Pocket FM sort of like.
So let's talk about the Pocket FM story. And, we've spoken about this previously. I mean, to all of you who are watching, some good things do come out of long, tragic commutes, and Pocket FM was one of them. So this is a trip that you were making every day between Gurgaon and Noida, and sitting in the metro and getting frustrated about how long it was taking you. And then you stumbled upon the fact that, look, there's all of this video stuff, but no one's doing audio.
Yeah. I think, I was working at PDM, so I was commuting Gurgaon to Noida. I don't know why. I just decided, okay, fine, I'll commute 3 hours. I have no idea. Like now, at that point, I was like, what am I doing?
That time, there was no work from home, boss. We had to go to office.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to stay at home, right, in Gurgaon. So I think there was a reason, but I used to like question myself, what am I doing with my life? Like wasting 3 hours, all of that. And then, of course, on the side, I have to keep debating with Nishanth and Prateek that, okay, what do we do? I really want to do something, right? And I think at that point of time, I was obsessed with content. Because even before sort of Paytm, I was building a short video app when there was no TikTok.
I think he was also building smart bulbs and
Smart bulbs, short video app. What else were you doing on the side?
And that was the same company, surprisingly. Smart bulbs and then short video app.
Smart bulbs, short video, news app. I don't know.
Like new product that Rohan is working.
Every 1 year I was building something new. But I think I also built a smart bulb. Which changes colors and all that. But anyways, but I think, but I got obsessed with content, to be honest. Like I've been an avid content consumer, but I just realized, oh, this is so cool. Like you can build something out, creators can produce content, and they get famous without a gatekeeper. That was something which was so inspiring to me, to be honest. And I was like just figuring out what else can be done, because I think I clearly missed the short video wave, right? And we got acquired by Paytm, the startup I was working at. And I was just getting frustrated on the metro. It was a metro ride because traffic. I cannot take a cab. It takes more time in a cab.
Yeah.
And I can't watch a video on metro because I used to feel nauseous, while watching a video on mobile phone. And I was just bored. And I started listening to audiobooks and podcasts. Frankly, it's okay for like I can consume a podcast and I want to know about something.
Yeah.
But 15 hours a week, you will just get bored. To be honest, right? I mean, sometimes it's a bit too boring, especially in audiobook. It'll be like, it'll be very basic, like very bland narration. There's no emotions to it sometimes. And I was like getting bored. And surprisingly, Nishanth was at Savan, which was like an audio
platform.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was like, what are you going to do? Build something, like, you're at Savan, just do something here.
You're wasting your time.
He called me like, yeah, this is the idea. Like, I think a non-music audio platform, it will have a lot of genres of content. And I was like, I was just looking at the data and I was like, wow. And we're already seeing in Savan a lot of traction happening on the podcast and non-music category growing up, right? I think it just sort of hit off. Like when he told that, I'm like, actually seeing that.
So the bulb went off in your head.
And they were like, dude, this is
smart bulb.
Yeah, smart bulb.
Like, let's just do it. I think that's where the conviction came, right? And he had that personal journey, and then I was just seeing a data at 15 million user base, and this is going to work.
And then who made the call to Prateek?
I think Nishanth. So I was actually interviewing for Meta at that time.
Okay.
He was
He was in
into
London.
Meta in London, and we had to pull him back. Otherwise, he would have
He was a hard
accepted
catch.
And lost him to Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
You gave up Mark Zuckerberg for these two.
But sort of like I was also convinced when they discussed with me. I think so. From my point of view, I think it was more around serving a lot of underserved content, right? So when you think of video, I mean, you cannot produce like video content for all the content, right? If you look at fantasy genre, I mean, like fantasy is pretty rare in videos, right? So from content creation point of view as well, right? I mean, audio is that category where you can serve underserved categories as well, where the content doesn't exist, right? So I think along with
he called me one day, just say, "Are you guys serious about?" Because otherwise, I'll have to accept an offer. Like, are you serious about it? Or are you still thinking about it? And I'm telling him.
I think he went to London as well.
He went to London. He was interviewing for Meta, and in between, like,
But that's a pretty high conviction bet then to make on these two and give up the Zuckerberg offer.
Yeah. I mean,
What made you do it?
So Prateek was one of the best developer in India at that time. Android developer. He was working at Hike. I mean, it was really a hard catch. More difficult to catch hold of Prateek than investors actually.
no, I mean,
As the package he had.
yeah,
in
I mean,
Meta.
I really wanted to like from starting itself, right? I mean, I was really fascinated about the tech, right? I mean, how can tech sort of like change millions of lives at a scale? And then hindsight, I always wanted to sort of like build a startup as well. And then with Rohan and Nishanth, I got that conviction. I mean, this is it. Let's sort of like start.
I remember that Rohan went to that whole Zabanga story and all. That I think had a lot of connect that it's sort of going to work.
yeah. Like,
But what, and to have had this conversation with amongst the three of you and say, look, audio streaming, like to do the Netflix on audio is what we want to do, what we aspire to do is one thing. But were there any takers at that point in time, from an investor point of view?
Okay, so this is very interesting. So we incorporated the company. Obviously, we launched the app in 2 weeks.
How does the name come about?
Oh yeah, so we were brainstorming names. So first name was
Radio
So Musically, remember, like Musically was a TikTok. You're like, okay, fine, we'll do Radio Lee or something.
I still have Rohan's number saved as Radio Lee Rohan.
Radio Lee Rohan. It has a nice twang to it.
and I think and then we were brainstorming names, and so we first wanted to sort of say that it's an audio app. So we were initially something came like FM because sort of affixed with
with radio,
audio.
yes.
And then we were brainstorming, we were having polls, like all of that stuff that, okay, what should be the name on Slack? And then I think we brainstormed that, it's entertainment in your pocket. So just call it Pocket FM, and it had a nice ring to it. So we just, I think, and all of us liked it. So we went ahead with Pocket. So accessible. Now I can say it's accessible entertainment and all that, but
that's on hindsight.
And hindsight, it's more to do with that you have entertainment in your pocket, which is mobile first content, not TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I just told an auto driver like this is what the app is going to be. I was literally pitching him. Would you use something like this? He was like, yeah, I'll keep it in my pocket while I'm driving.
No.
Yeah.
I want you to narrate this conversation to us as it actually happened. What did you tell the auto driver?
So I just told him, basically he was just watching on YouTube and then driving. I'm like, hey, you're just like looking at the video. You're not looking at the road, right? Like he was like, yeah, but this I have to watch also. And then, he wanted to consume some content. Something, right?
Yeah.
I told, what if there is would you like to listen to stories? And I was like, obviously I watch a lot of content. What if there is an audio story and all that? And then I like sort of described him like, a sort of like a romance drama show like this is there. I just narrated him a story a bit. And then I told him like, what if you can just put on your headphone and then listen?
Listen to it.
He was like, yeah, that I would love it. I'll just put my phone in the pocket. And I think that just sort of connected. I think this is sort of the use case. And today, well, just coming back, the exact use case, at 3:00 in the flight, my cab driver was like, in Kannada language, he was listening to some Super Yodha story. I was like, and that feeling, right? Like, he opened that from Namayatri to that event. And then I was like, is that Pocket FM? And then I asked him, like, he was like, I listen for 3-4 hours a day because I'm always on the go. And I don't get...
How does that make you feel?
I think that was like literally emotional moment. Just yesterday we had that. And
interestingly, now in India, interestingly, I was just this trip, actually I didn't tell you. So I was commuting in SF, okay. So there's this Uber driver who is actually an engineer at Boeing, and it was
yeah,
also
that's quite regular.
that's
in
regular
the
in the
valley.
US,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So and Uber drivers in US like talk a lot, frankly. And I was like, sure, I'll also have a good conversation. I was like, oh, where do you work? I was like, yeah, at Pocket FM. I was like, yeah, you know, uh, I listen to a lot of content here, and I don't like it. I'm like, why don't you like it? It's like, you know what? It takes 5 hours of my time. I don't like it, so I had to uninstall it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
I think
that's
So, I mean, in a way, how do you see that as a good problem or a bad
it's
problem?
a good problem. I think I'm pretty sure he install it again, but
I think one
but-
very funny story happened with me as well. So I was doing the immigration in US, and the immigration officer was kept on asking me a lot of questions, right?
Why in US?
While I was in US, right? So I kept on answering, and then he asked me last, where do you like work? I said Pocket FM, and then he just laughed. Oh, you work for Pocket FM, and then he was a fan of Pocket FM.
Really?
Yeah, and then he just sort of told me that he can go, right? I mean,
I was like, just questioning why you coming to the
no
US.
further questions.
No
right?
further
questions,
questions
right?
Pocket
because
FM saying.
you work at
I was
Pocket
amazed.
FM.
I mean, right? I mean, the reach of Pocket, right? The amount of use cases, and I was amazed with that.
Is he listening to it while
He wasn't listening back then, but
I doubt he would be listening to it while
Yeah.
clearing passports and visas. But as you sit here today and recount all of these incidents, from an Uber driver in San Francisco to an immigration officer in the US to an auto driver here in Bangalore, I mean, what was the wildest aspiration that you had when you started off? I mean, what did you think you could achieve? What was it?
I think we started and we had no expectation at all because to be honest, like even when we started, all of us used to tell us it was a video world back then.
Yeah.
Like short video was growing like crazy. All the hype was about all that, and we are like saying that to be honest, it's not like there was a huge tailwind for audio at that point. It's not
No,
like
in fact, there were headwinds.
Headwinds,
Yeah.
exactly. And investors were like, it won't work. Why? And then the first question was, who listens to audio? I mean, sometimes, to be honest, you'll be surprised we still get it. Like, because because of the fact that, there's always some biases that remain. But
No, but even today, when you think of audio, you will think of music, you'll think of podcasts. The idea of fictionalized, serialized content on audio is still something that, takes you a little bit by surprise that it even exists as a category.
Yeah. Because it's still very early, to be honest. Like, it's very early as a category.
But
today.
surprisingly, if you look at video, it's 60-70% is that. Right? Netflix is just that. They are just fiction.
Yeah.
Right? I think, it's actually quite surprised that it's not there in audio. It should be format agnostic.
I think, Shereen, if you look at fundamentally before the digital era, radios were the main sort of format of consuming entertainment back then, and then radio is purely audio.
Yeah.
What has happened over last 10-15 years as smartphones have evolved, digital economy has grown, right? The radio the consumption of radios have decreased.
Yeah.
But no one focused while digital transformation happened, the smartphone revolution happened. No one focused on digital audio as such, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the way I think people actually sort of.
We'll be surprised that as you know, right? Fiction on radio used to be a big thing.
Big thing.
Like the soap operas, the terminology came from radio, not from video, right? So it used to be a big thing, but actually got lost.
All of you used to listen to radios. I mean, back then, right?
Yeah,
just that
killed the radio, and now you're in a way trying to revive that.
It's just that during that smartphone revolution, I mean, things got sort of no one built for that, right? So.
But I think the good thing is use cases are already there. That the whole your eyes are busy, ears are free use cases always there. I think we're not creating a use case. We're just giving content in that use case.
Eyes are busy, ears are free. Yes, that's a nice way to put it. But let's talk about building this out. So 2018, when you got started, what was it like to try and draw the first check in to get the first investor on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were fortunate also to an extent here because we incorporated the company. We had started speaking to investors well before that. And I think we got the first check 1 month out, right? And from Lightspeed. And
they've been big believers in.
They've doubled down every round. So it was interesting because we didn't have any numbers back then. You had to sort of sort of explain why audio. And second was, hey, will this become a big sort of business, even if, you have some market here? So it was really good on getting that first check because it was a blank canvas for us. There was literally nothing that you can't learn from anyone's mistakes here, right? So it's like,
but that's the upside and the downside of being a category creator, right? I mean, you create the playbook, but at the same time, you don't have the template to learn from somebody else's mistakes. So you've got to make your own.
Yeah, so I think the first couple of years for us was from the seed round that we raised, we realized that the seed check is not for growth. There's not growth capital. There's just experiment capital. Like you have to just keep experimenting and finding PMF, a product market fit, right? We decided, most of us come from a product and engineering background. So you're not media folks. It's not like we'll say, okay, let's launch a show and then let's see how it works. We were like, okay, it's a new entertainment category. So what matters is finding the right format. Like for instance, TikTok had this vertical 16:9 15-second video as an innovation in format. Twitter had this 160 odd characters. Instagram was square photos. All of these were new formats of which then evolved into a much bigger platform. So for us, the question was, what's the format? Like, is it like podcast comedy? We didn't stumble upon serialized fiction from day one, right? It was like an evolution of at least 10 plus format experiments. Used to launch a format, see the data, no engagement, no retention, just, keep pivoting every 2-3 months.
And that's what happened even with the decision to move from user-generated content or move away from user-generated content. Now you, of course, still have it on the Pocket
Yeah,
app.
we are now coming back to that. So initially we started with UGC, realized that, in audio, there's an interesting insight. The bar of quality that you need in audio is higher than video.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Because because in video, both your senses are hooked here, visual and auditory, right? So, but in audio,
you can get away with a lot less.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the audio format.
The exploration is tough, really tough to explore content in audio. You need to really know what am I consuming, right? If you don't like a content, it's difficult to switch. I have to literally open the app. The kind of friction that is there to switch is very difficult. In video, I can just swipe up.
Yeah, I think audio is more of a passive listening, right? You don't sort of look at your screen, right? And in video, if you look at bad content, you can just swipe it out, right? In audio, you have to open up your app and sort of switch the content, right? So that's why the barrier of content quality is so high.
In video, you can just swipe up. So that's it. You're done, right?
Yeah. But this move to, create fictionalized content, serialized content for an audio streaming platform, which is essentially what you're attempting to do. The genesis of that you just explained, but the execution of that, nobody else was doing it. So how did you build that ecosystem up?
I will tell you the genesis of the serialized fiction content though. So this was like 2020, 2019, 2 years in, right? And this was like Diwali time. And this was like 9th, 10th. We have pivoted a bunch of time and formats. Nothing is working. So we decided, let's not go back. Let's go to Goa for Diwali. Like ideally we go back home and all that. We said, okay, let's go to Goa, chill, because
the three of
us, nothing is working, right? And we took a road trip actually, right? Road trip to Goa.
I think we had just some 20 lakh left in the bank.
20, hardly 3 months of runway.
I had to scale down all these servers and everything, right? Prepping for, let's say, for the worst.
Up.
Servers, right? Scale down all these servers.
Yeah. It was we just had 3 months runway. And we were we have to try 10 formats, nothing is working. And we're just sitting on a dinner table, just parents are calling, let's go to Diwali. I'm like, dude, let's not go to Diwali home. Let's be together.
Because this might be the last trip together.
So we went to Goa, right? And it's interesting, we're nothing is working. The last pivot didn't work. Of course, when you keep doing so many experiments and pivots, you learn something out of it. It's not like it all goes to waste, right? And we had learned a couple of things. One, that short form entertainment won't work in audio. It's not that you're listening for 15 seconds. Your use case is longer, right? 30 minutes, 1 hour. So one was that we knew that it would be a long form format. It won't be like TikTok of audio, essentially, right? And the second was that we realized that fiction is the highest engaging format amongst all entertainment. And it's true in video as well, right? And we were sitting in, we're chilling in a pool or something, right? And I think we're just brainstorming. Nothing is working. What do we do? No one is giving us capital. We need to raise our Series A. And we had met 50, 60 investors, no traction. That too in audio. like investor like, yeah, I told you it won't work.
I
right?
told you so.
I told you
told you
so.
so.
I told you so. And we're like, and then suddenly it hit us that, like, in hindsight, it feels obvious. Everything feels obvious, to be honest, in hindsight. But you're like, okay, if we combine long form and fiction, and then maybe rethink of TV show and audio, like, have bite-sized episodes, 10 minutes each, have like a proper voice acting, sound effects, music. You close your eyes, you can imagine it's a cinematic experience of sort. Maybe it could work. Don't know, but and also like maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we had to figure it out because again, the problem in all of these pivots was the biggest problem. Where do you get content? Like, even if you want to do this, okay, fine, if one fine day, you don't have content license and put it on your platform, right?
You've got to create it.
You have to create it.
Yeah, I think we got lucky, right? You remember the first story in UGC? It came actually from UGC. We did a bunch of things, and one of the creator, she had created a 20-hour story called Kitni Mohabbat Hai.
Kitni Mohabbat Hai.
Kitni Mohabbat. I think that was like, in the platform it was there, but it was just all hidden, right? We're not propagated and tested it.
Right.
When we sort of like took that story and worked with the creator to, change the format into 10-minute episodes, a 20-hour story into like 200 episodes. And then I remember Rohan talked to like 10, 15 voiceover artists. He found somebody called RJ Priyanka also. So these two like artists came together and they, literally recreated. And the numbers were like 5x. So investors and holders, if you want to raise Series A, you need to have more than 10% retention. And we were like, wow.
And we were at 2%.
We were at 2% literally. And we have been doing this for 1 year. And we launched this show. The retention is like 12%. I'm like, I think in the morning we went. And Rohan was looking at the data. Like, dude, I don't believe this data because too good to be.
First, I told Prateek it's a bug. Okay, like because engagement time, like the daily listening time, went up to 120 minutes.
From 15 minutes to 120 minutes, just in
2 hours a day. I was like, 2 hours a day is impossible.
Nobody's doing it.
Like because like in short video world, we used to struggle for 30 minutes, and now someone is saying it's 120 minutes. Where Prateek just check the
debug like for 2 hours, like consistently, and then like literally.
It was like,
this is real. This is the real
that's right.
deal.
It's not a. So we looked at the servers, like is actually the 120 minutes being streamed.
Yeah.
And then
we did talk to a lot of users as well between, right? I mean, talked to a bunch of users and then.
But it was the first off the bat was a hit. But did you worry about the fact that it might end up being a one-hit wonder?
I mean, I think the idea was once it works. I mean, we at least we have a road, we have a path. It's like at least you have seen PMF now. Earlier, if you don't have PMF, what will you do? Like
chilling in the pool, came up with this idea, and then finally, this is the pivot that helped you. Kind of take this company and take it forward, and as opposed to shuttering it, because that was probably the decision that you.
I mean, we didn't want to, but we were running out of cash, so. Prateek had already, said that I'll optimize server costs and all of that. And so after that happened, so then I start calling all the investors again, saying that look at this, and look at our engagement time, look at our sort of retention metrics improving.
And then the next check came in.
And then the Series A check came in, and then that was like a very interesting. I mean, I think you would also say that, in hindsight, you feel that okay, it happened at the right time. Like had this happened. If you would not have taken the Goa, didn't you would have.
I think it's luck matters. Like luck sort of favors that.
You can't discount that there was some luck involved here as well.
I would imagine, some luck for sure.
The biggest sort of learning is that when you're in a seed stage, there's a very limited resource. So you get to do like 10 experiments max with the kind of checks you get in seed fund. And if you're just wrong, see, today we have a lot of resource, right? We do hundreds of experiments right now at any point of time in the company. So it sometimes becomes a matter of luck as well, Those 10 experiments did not work for you. The vision was great. The people were good, but you just couldn't get it.
And I think nowadays seed checks are much larger.
Yes.
For us, it was like a 500K. Now seed checks start at 2 million. So I'm guessing, I think a lot of times we meet like entrepreneurs, the idea is seed check is experiment capital. Because a lot of times people are like,
treat it as growth capital.
People are like, I want to grow, like I want to increase revenues and like at least experiment, get the right product market fit, and then use growth capital, not like using seed checks to.
So you finally believed with this that you had got the product market right. Then the question is, who's going to pay for it? How do you make money? And I would imagine that investors were asking you that question.
I think that took us 2 years actually.
2 years.
From like 2020 to 2022, we literally I think we've done like some hundreds of experiments on monetization. Like like for example, like, one of the weirdest idea was microtransactions, right?
Huh.
Like,
But that's the idea that's working.
yeah, that
All
worked.
weird ideas.
Yeah.
So I just tell you a microtransaction story. We have tried a lot of variations of microtransactions. Nothing was working. So one of our PM, so we were actually like on a trip, and like he had made some bug.
These trips are for toasters for Pocket FM clearly. Huh? So go on a trip and good things happen.
It has actually. So we were actually on a trip, and the PM had made some mistake. He
We're
wrote
not
out
talking
like
about the
a
Prime Minister, by the way. Just
The
to
product manager.
just to be
Product
clear.
manager.
Yes.
yeah. So it's the product manager. So he made the pricing was wrong. I mean, we had kept a very like less pricing, and somehow he made like the price like 5x.
Huh.
And we saw that like like the monetize like yesterday's revenue was like 5x jump. I'm like like you made the price 5x and the revenue is going 5x. What's happening? I think we sort of realized that in microtransactions, the basically a very set of users would love to pay. So our model is like a freemium model, right? You can just listen to the old story for free. But if you want to, it's basically you're paying for the convenience, right? I'll get 1 hour free, but if I want to listen to more episodes, I have to sort of pay for that. And I don't mind paying like 10 to 15 rupees a day, right? So I think that was sort of an insight, and we had just kept a price of episode as 2 rupee, 3 rupee, and when we actually increased the price, it worked.
So when you moved higher on pricing, it worked better for you.
It worked, and that is when I think we have like even microtransaction is not working.
How counterintuitive is that?
It is very
But I think but microtransaction itself was like a very interesting story, right? I mean, I think everyone does subscriptions, to be honest, and that's the advantage of also building a new category. You don't have to care about what works in other forms. You can just be like, okay, I'll do what we feel like doing or what we believe is the right thing. And I think that's also what we're realizing over time, that it's a very like we get to build a category of entertainment the way we want to, like way our sort of philosophies are, way our ideals are, rather than being like, okay, that's how it's happened in video, so let's just do the same thing. And that's pretty interesting. Microtransaction is definitely, but I think the core of all of this is very rapid experiments. We just do like so many experiments all the time that something, of course, it's thought through experiment, but the probabilities of experiments working are anyways low, right? So idea is to do more experiments, and even
in the hope of finding that one blockbuster idea.
Yeah.
But going back to monetization, and I think this is something that everyone in the digital world is struggling with in some form or fashion. Do you put yourself behind a paywall? Do you go the subscription route? Do you do microtransactions? I mean, what do you do at this point? What's been the big insight? One, you shared with us that, getting the pricing right. And in your case, the higher you went, the better it worked out for you. But, as you look at discretionary spending today, as you look at the market opening up, how much are people willing to spend? I mean, what's the data telling you on the back of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think just to sort of like take a step back. I mean, if you look at the consumer behavior in India, especially, right? I mean, users don't want to overcommit. I mean, if you ask them to pay 300 rupees upfront, no one pays for that.
Okay.
There's a sachet. That's how sachet works.
Right.
People are actually, users can buy like sachets for 2-3 rupees, but no one is going to buy a bottle of that, right? And that's how sort of like that microtransaction insight came, right? I mean, people buy small sachets, right? I think over the course of last 3-4 years, I mean, definitely, I mean, the propensity to pay have certainly increased, right? Along with, I mean, the models that we have innovated, right? So we also introduced the ads model as well, right? Considering it's a microtransaction model, obviously not all of them are going to pay, considering we are a freemium product, right? So users can also watch ads from like their convenience point of view to earn sort of like coins, right? I mean, so that has evolved amazingly as well.
Rewarded ads.
Basically, in an era of like push-driven ads, you're disturbing the user. It's actually pull-driven ads, right? We don't disturb the users. We give them free content. And if they can either purchase coins or they can say, I want to watch ads or I want to make an e-commerce transaction and they'll earn coins because of that. So it's like a very different approach, right? We're not disturbing the user, I think.
So you're leaving the choice to
the users.
to the consumer.
So either you can like buy coins or you can earn coins as well. And that has sort of like changed the game for us.
I think interestingly, this is like gaming cross content. Like gaming, you see Candy Crush, you have like these, I think the innovation, I would say for us has been that how do you gamify the content consumption experience? So that's been a very interesting. It's an intersection of gaming and content.
Also, like considering it's a freemium production, and right, I mean, what happens is that, and you don't have to overcommit, right? So typically, the behavior of users is pretty sinusoidal in nature, right? So they'll pay for, let's say, certain episodes, and then they'll consume it for free for next week, right? And then again for next month they're gonna pay for some episodes, and then they'll consume for free. And that's the beauty of having freemium product, right? Users always have that choice to sort of like pay or consume for free.
But what does that mean as far as the company is concerned? Because there is a patchiness to then this revenue that's coming in, right? I mean, it could be lumpy, it could be front loaded, or you could have periods where you don't actually see money coming in, and so I would imagine that's why ancillary revenue streams on advertising, etc., come into play there. But was this a concern? Is this a concern today?
Interestingly, microtransactions puts a lot more pressure on content, because the content quality needs to be a lot better, right? Because in subscription, what happens is you're consuming and you didn't like it. So you feel like, okay, fine, I didn't like it, I'll move on to a new show. In microtransactions, what happens is, as you're paying per episode, so there's advantages, which is the fact that low barrier to entry and you're paying as you go. And there's one flaw in subscription. The subscription flaw is that, let's say you're an OTT platform charging 1,000 rupees a year, which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Now, all of us as users, let's say, paying a lot more to Netflix, which is, let's say, 7,000 rupees a year, right? You're actually not taking 7,000 from us. You're taking only 1,000, which means you're missing out on the revenue from users who can pay more, and then missing out on users who can pay less than 1,000. Like if I'm comfortable with 500 price point, I won't subscribe to you. Now the question what microtransactions solves is, think of it like it depending on how much you love the content, you can play in this range. You can play 200, you can pay 5,000, you can pay 1,000, right? So that's the advantage of microtransaction, why it worked for us, right?
You kind of based the business on the gamification model, haven't you? I mean, that's core. That's core to how you think through your problems as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But the disadvantages of, as you mentioned, it was a challenge initially.
Yeah, the lumpiness of the revenue.
But now we don't see any lumpiness as such, right? We see on an average what Prateek mentioned is a standard user behavior. So the revenue for some users, some sinusoidal, but an overall average out level, it sort of works out. Right.
So what, 1,000 plus crores today?
2,000
crores as of today. Given where you are seeing yourselves, given all the expansion that you have planned, the new markets that you intend to go into, I mean, what could this number look like a couple of years on?
I mean, when we started Pocket, you mentioned that. I think you forgot. We used to think like, okay, let's get to like, I think
100 crores,
50 crores, 100 crores. It'll be like,
was our revenue target.
Like you get 100 crores, you're sorted.
Yeah.
You're like,
we'll again go to Goa and then chill.
we go to 100 crores was like the target for us. But then now I think, frankly, one is Pocket FM, and as we have now evolved into Pocket Entertainment, where we believe the playbooks we have figured out for Pocket FM, like the content playbooks, marketing playbooks, monetization playbooks, these three fundamental pillars of any entertainment business. I think we're very clear that we have a very new way of building an entertainment business. This is not I still feel streaming platforms are legacy now going forward, right? They were at some point the cutting edge sort of entertainment platforms, but I mean, it's a new era now, right? So
what's new about the new era? Because everyone says that it's never been done before and so on and so on. What's new about the new era?
So I think throughout history, it's creators have never got distribution without gatekeepers, right? And I think content is an art. We don't see content as like, okay, content. It's essentially someone creating some form of an art, right? Stories are actually probably one of the biggest art forms out there, right? And for us, if you're a writer today and you have to go to you have to go to a gatekeeper, to be honest, to get your movie out, to get your audio books out or something like that, right? Now, and then the philosophy has always been that some executive knows how to judge content, and someone gets to decide if this content is worth their time or users' time. That I think is a very different. I mean, that is not how it should
So
be
you're
now.
going away from the commissioning route, essentially, of
Yeah.
commissioning of content.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now with AI, what's happened really, and it's not like hype or something, right? I feel what will happen now is, it's already happening in Pocket. Creators or writers can now produce higher quality content, like on their own using AI. So for instance, in Pocket, right, we have over 50,000 AI audio shows on the platform, where a writer sitting anywhere in India, anywhere in the world, right? Let's say, the reason we ditched UGC, to be honest, in the beginning was the fact that how would a writer create an audio show? I'm a great writer, but how do I record?
You don't have the tools. Yeah.
You don't have the voice as well.
Oh, yeah,
Voice.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now I have to pay someone,
Yeah.
right? That's cumbersome. How do I find? I'm like sitting somewhere in some city. How do I find this out? But I have a really good story, a really good one, right? And I've gone to publishers. They've said no to me. What do I do? And I'm doing some other job. Although I want to be a storyteller, I'm doing some other job because there's no way for me to do anything. Now, what we did in 2024 beginning was we realized this is a big moment for entertainment, and you can either be like, okay, it's a hype, it's a fad,
Or you can get on board with it and do something with it. Yeah.
and rewire the company, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing that's going to be very clear in the next 5 years is if you don't rewire it, if you don't rewire the company in the sense that, because sometimes when you are building, you have a baggage, you're like, even for a startup, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So we said, okay, we'll just embrace this head on. Like we'll be, if you don't do it, we'll fail. It's sort of like the sense of paranoia that if you don't do it, you will die. Right? Let's just do it. So then the first product was this voice piece. So any writer on the Pocket app today can start writing, and they get like a suite of like 50-60 good AI voices, really good voices. And again, you listen to them, it's very hard. And it just
Distinguish whether it's human or AI.
It and it's getting better every quarter.
And this is all tech that you guys are building. Yeah.
I mean, so I think just to sort of like add to Rohan, I mean, we're already at 40 CR revenue from AI series only, right? And it's expected to grow 10x next year, right, to 400 CR. I think the other thing was that, I mean, while Rohan sort of like covered the creation aspect, if you look at from users' point of view as well, the consumer's point of view as well, right, and the accessibility of content, right? Like globally, there are 80 languages, 80 plus languages, having more than 1 CR speakers, right? And no one creates content from those languages. I mean, apart from like top 5 or 6 languages, no one creates content for those languages, right? And that's where sort of like your AI is going to fill in that role, right? And we in Pocket believe that content has to be democratized, both for sort of like creator from creating point of view and for consumers as well, right? Maybe a user in, let's say, some country in Africa, right? They should be having content in their own local language, right?
Yeah.
Second part of, I think, our entertainment stack is the our adaptation tool that we have built, right? Where you take a story and then sort of like convert and adapt that story to 80 plus languages.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that has been an sort of like amazing product as well.
I think that is one of the big learnings that the stories actually traveled, and
the stories are universal, very often universal in nature.
70% of our blockbusters are same in India and US.
Yeah.
And people would actually see that, India and US are very different culture, the way Hollywood movies are made, the way Bollywood movies are made. But it's like, I think the emotions are and the characters are very universal. And the same thing is happening in Germany as well. So I think with what we have built is like, sort of like OS, right? Entertainment OS, which can like, I have an IP.
So we call it as entertainment OS.
So literally one of the creator, I mean, she's like from Chhattisgarh, and she's just like literally a student, right? Her story is now present in German, it's present in UK, it's present in US. So that's the power, right? They could not get this kind of reach without, platform like this and without the power of AI.
So I think I just got to know yesterday, I mean, right? So one of the writer, small town UP, I think.
So the writers are coming in from Chhattisgarh, UP. Right? I mean, this is not.
And Americans are listening to theirs.
And Americans are listening to writers sitting in Chhattisgarh and UP telling their story.
And that story is like adapted with the help of AI. How do you take a Hindi story written in a UP sort of a style and all that and convert that into a German language? Adaptation is done, and when you listen in like in US, you don't feel that it was written by like a writer from like UP, right? Very different adaptation, very different AI.
And the tool is yours.
Tool is ours. I think we have
for the voice piece
story we have.
I think so. That writer, I mean, arranged his sister's marriage with the money he has earned through Pocket.
So the revenue
Right.
share.
And surprisingly, I think his story that he has written, I think it's called Mahagatha,
Brahma Yuddha.
Brahma Yuddha, right?
Yeah.
So that is being adapted to a small town in UP. His story is being adapted to German, US English.
I think this is a real Make in India
Right.
moment happening
Yeah.
right now.
It is
Yeah,
a
it
real
is,
Make in
yeah.
India.
This is
Make in India for the world.
For the world,
For
yeah.
the world, yeah.
I mean, it's like really heartening to see that a story from like a village in UP is actually traveling to the globe, right? And with the power of technology.
And that's where I think Rohan's point on gatekeeper, right? I mean, sort of like
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense now. I mean, there's no gatekeeper. If you have creativity, if you have talent, I think you're gonna achieve
Then the
success, right?
boundaries
are
are blurred.
limitless.
But you know, when you started, did you think that you would one day be serving the US market? You would be producing content in German for Germany, or for in French for France? I mean, did you even aspire to that?
No, interestingly, not at all. Like, I mean, to be honest, I think there's some subtle point here that as Indian entrepreneurs, you are not wired to think global. To be very honest, like
Why do you think that's the case?
because there's not. So I would say, and I have a big issue with this, to be honest. But like, I think the
No,
first
I have an issue with it as well, but I want to hear what you have to say.
because like the first thing is there are not enough instances,
Yes.
right? Can consumer like you have always wired for the other way around that American companies will come to India.
Yeah, I have a problem with this. I want to be the TikTok of India, and I want to be the Instagram of India, and I have a problem with that approach to thinking.
So I think for us it was like we started off. Of course, we're not even thought remotely that we'll do this, right? Because you don't, to be honest. Like you start, you're like, fine, India's a big market. You'll build it here, scale it here. And in 2021, end of 2021, right? We're seeing India sort of scale up really nicely. We scaled up 10x that year, and we were brainstorming, and we were like, this business, it seems like a new category. Now it will work everywhere. I think all of us are very first principles. It's not like, so we are very first principle thinkers that, okay, if you break it down, the question in front of us was, why won't it work in the US? Let's try to answer that. Not why it would. Obviously, it's easy to say that it will work. We couldn't find any core reason why it would not work in any other geography, like even US, Europe, wherever, right? And then the question for us was that, do we then let someone else do it? Some other person, entrepreneur comes in, builds it on the US, and we are here. And for some reason, it just didn't feel right. Like, that why, like, I mean, we have figured out the playbook.
You believe that you had the right to win, or you should
have
have the right to
and,
win.
You have, at some point, you have an ambition as well that, you know what, of course, like, we'll take over the world here, right? So I think sort of like that.
It's actually a mindset, right? Like, so when Instagram started, the founders never thought we were building for US. They always thought we were building for globe, right? I think that mindset was sort of ingrained, is that, we're just building for India. I think as entrepreneurs, all of us have to now mature. The India moment is there. Any new product that we're building, I think what we have to think is like, from day zero, I'm building for the world. It just that mind block was there. That, it's scary to go global. Do we have the resources? I think we'll just figure out along the way.
It's also sort of like this, it's a very deep cultural thing. I'll elaborate on what it is, right? So we discussed we'll go US, right? We started speaking to a lot of people. And there's enough failure stories of Indian consumer apps trying to go global and rolling back or not working out. But again, I think for us, it was very clear that we have developed playbooks which are agnostic for any language or culture. It's like, how do you find great shows? How do you market them? How do you monetize them? It doesn't matter. It just, obviously the content will be different for US. Even today, a lot of people, when we meet people, they're like, oh, Indians are listening to content in US. I'm like, no. These are like,
Americans are listening to content.
It's not Indian.
So it's not an NRI or a diaspora audience.
It's less like that. I mean, it's 99.
So who is the Pocket FM listener in the US, which is now your big revenue generator? What, 70% of revenue is coming in from the US?
70%.
So who is the Pocket FM consumer in the US?
So in the US, I think it's one thing I realized, our demographic for audio, like Pocket FM in India, US, wherever, is actually users who have very strong use case of audio content, right? It's in US, in fact, we have 150 minutes of engagement time every day, because US as a market is more mature in terms of audio use cases. You have longer commute times. You have more. US consumers have been consuming audio for a very, very long period of time, from podcasts to audiobooks to music and so on. So our primary demographic in US is 25 to 45, and it's users who who, I mean, the users, the demographic is quite broad. It's not like, okay, this city or this state or this gender or whatever, right? It's sort of like, one thing we've realized is the content decides the demographic. So for instance, when we started with more one or two genres, right? Because we wanted to stay focused. And then as we have expanded the genres on the platform, you attract different kinds of audiences.
What's the top genre on Pocket FM?
It's drama, romance and drama, and then fantasy.
It's like the big launch in 2024 and it's catching up. I think it's probably going to become number one over time.
I think the thing about fantasy was that, I mean, as we talked about the underserved category, fantasy was that underserved category, right? I mean, you don't get to see a lot of fantasy content on like.
I'm trying to even imagine
Right.
fantasy content in audio form.
Yeah.
Hey, it's actually like very immersive because the kind of there's no like see in video there's always this budget. Can I produce this? Like the word building is so complex. I can, as a writer, you have all the freedom to go like. I mean, we have one of the story which is like 9 levels of power and all that, and like so complex, right? And users love that. How does the hero progress? Keep taking these challenges up. I think this underserved in video is a very big unlock.
I think we see that in sort of like our engagement as well, right? There was definitely a latent demand for fantasy category, right? People will just starved of fantasy content. It was just not there, right? And as in when we are increasing our catalog of fantasy, we see like great engagements from our users, right? So that's also, I mean, we're looking at more such categories which are underserved both in US and India, but that's an interesting point as well.
Sort of coming back to the US one, right?
Yeah.
I think when we so all of us like a lot of you folks were telling us don't do it. Just don't do it. You'll fail miserably. Like and the thing was because we were series. We didn't have a lot of capital at that point. It's not like we had like $100 million and we're like, we'll do 2 markets. But it was like this sort of ambition that, we'll do it, we'll figure it out. No matter what, we'll figure it out, right? That's some sense of confidence we had.
Where does this very high confidence and conviction come from? Because through the course of your journey, I mean, you've been told no more often than you've been told yes. So where does this very high degree of confidence and conviction come from? I mean, does it go back to the way that you were raised, the way that your parents kind of brought you up? I would imagine it has something to do with your roots.
That's a very deep question.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
I think.
It is a podcast. It is a podcast.
I think some level of confidence also. I think there are 2 layers to it. I have to think about the childhood thing. I'm not too sure, but I think
you're on a couch. You can regress back in time.
I think the first thing is that we're more first principle thinkers. That I mean, a lot of times you fail, like as first principle thinkers, like a lot of times I don't, or like a lot of people don't think first principally. And if something makes sense from a first principle standpoint, then it's more execution failure you are facing.
Yeah.
It's not like,
the idea was wrong.
It's an execution failure. And I think one thing we've realized over time is that we figure out things through experiments. So most decisions in life and business are reversible, right? So the idea, very few are irreversible, that if you do it, like, things are going to just,
But you also have to have a temperament and a mentality that allows for that kind of experimentation, and also the ability to say it didn't work out, but I'm going to, move on from this.
That's
Not everybody has it.
That's the hardest.
I think, we both were from product background. So that experimentation mindset was sort of always there. As a product manager, you was at Paytm and I was Flipkart, you have that mindset. And then I think we brought the same mindset to content. Like, how do you launch content, right? I think this commissioning, the whole commissioning product it's actually a product.
Yeah.
It's not like, editorial process in Pocket. I think that's the reason we're able to launch in Germany. That's the reason we're able to do it in US, right? The product was already there. So it's basically, we call it as a blockbuster engine. It's basically like a machine, like feed in 500 shows. It is going to tell 5 shows with 80% accuracy, which will become blockbuster. It's a secret sauce for Pocket. I think, so this whole product thinking and experimentation sort of like helped us build that. And that sort of gave us confidence. If this engine is there, the engine should work everywhere, right? I think that was one of the key part for us, the whole product first thinking and experimentation.
Also, the conviction also comes from the way sort of like we design things, right? So if you look at be it content, growth, product, right? Generally, we don't design anything specific to a country, right? We don't say that, hey, we're doing this feature experiment for, let's say, India. The thought process has
So you're
always been
thinking
You're
you're
global,
thinking
yeah.
global.
I mean,
yeah.
so as Nishan talked about, right? I mean, the entire commissioning approach, right? Blockbuster, it's more of a like general purpose programmatic way of finding content, right? And that won't fail in US, right? That just can't fail in US or Germany,
Yeah.
right? So it also comes from that thinking where you're thinking more first principally, right? And then designing solution like more like country agnostic than actually.
So, let you another example. Like, none of us are from creative background, right?
Yeah, none of
So, what do you do? So,
And
pretty
that's
interesting, yeah.
the odd part,
that's
right?
the hard part.
Yeah.
So,
Mechanical engineers developing an entertainment business.
Yeah.
So we had this show, you remember, right? I think we had to market. No, the one part was commissioning, we built it. Second was marketing. It was actually 10x more complex than getting content right. And I think we remember, right? During COVID, we were just figuring out how do you market this show, right? I think how would you approach, like, you'll hire like editorial leadership and all and tell them, this, I think there was a show called Erishta KS, right?
Yes.
First blockbuster in India. And so we're like, how do you market? For example, one of the inside, I think Rohan got, he took like the first 100 episodes, right? And then he just generated like a video sort of that. Like literally like, just take all the episodes and just put it on the Facebook, the meta platforms to advertise and see like, how do those 100 videos, like which one is picking? See, like, somebody from the creative background would never think like this, right? So I think we saw that like some episode 50 had some sort of an incident which people are just loving. And then we just took that incident and then we rewrote and, optimized the bit. And then that became a viral promo, right? And that got us like some 10 million downloads. Very, very like product way
It was
of
top
talking.
5 in India at that point of time. I think interestingly, I think again, it's a first principle sort of way to think about marketing. Now, when you have a show, if you think about like what do you sell in the show, you have two ways. Either you in video, what happens, you get a celebrity, and even if the story is what it is, but you can you because of the celebrity you can make it a blockbuster. We didn't have capital to get a celebrity voice or something, right? We're like, we can't. I mean, how do you sell a piece of content, right? It's like, and then the second one was you sell the story, which is harder because you have to make people fall in love with the story itself or the character. I think again, then we decided we'll do this, the second one. So break down the problem, and we said, okay, we'll have to sell the story. Now, how do you sell the story, right? We said, okay, maybe again the same thing, right? Maybe we'll I don't know. Let's just put the content all on Facebook and YouTube and see which things are picking up.
The algorithm will help. It will help.
I think this whole thing, like, it just costed us like some $100-$200 to do this actually. And we were able to do this in 2-3 days. And then he just literally found like the most viral way of selling this show. I think that became a playbook now. Like we have optimized it further now. See, this is like a playbook, right? Now you can actually do that we don't understand.
So you can do it in any of the other markets that you're attempting to break into.
I don't understand German at all. But we have the playbook. So when I have the show,
and the blockbuster engine.
And the monetization.
Monetization.
It's actually good to be not a creative folks, all three of us, because we're just thinking like, how do you approach a creative problem from a product
I would
sense?
disagree. I think we've become more creative now, right? So
he has become more actually.
Because if you consume so much content,
I would imagine some of it will rub off on you.
Sure.
He has started writing promos now.
No. I think for some, like, I love content, so I'm like listening to content all the time, and it's like even I can maybe write the story a little bit better, but no, it's. I mean, I'm not.
Is that a pivot waiting to happen?
I would love to.
Promo head.
Written by Rohan Nayak.
I think Shereen, the other way to sort of like think the exact thing is to sort of like get to the fastest way and then let our users tell what works, right? I think generally like what happens with most of the other companies is that they have the pre-biases, right? I mean, if you look at this example of testing the promos, right? I think we let our user tell what they want, right? In our blockbuster engine as well, like we test what users want rather than having our own biases and then forcing to the users, right? I mean, so that sort of like thinking where we test the fastest way to get to the truth and then what users want sort of like helps us in, I think
that gives us a lot of unique shows, right? You have a lot of pre-biases. No one thought like a fantasy show in India. In India itself, I think it has crossed 50 CR.
Yeah.
that show. And
That
if
one
you,
show. I
So
think,
what is the most that you've
Yeah.
made on a show?
So there, like one interesting I think thing, right? So there is a show called in India called Ek Ladki Ho Dekha Jo,
Huh.
and that's in US called Saving Nora, right? That has made over 250 crores. And
A single show.
single show. And interestingly, Saving Nora / Ek Ladki Ho Dekha To is #1 show in US drama, US Spanish drama, Mexico, UK, Germany, Spain, Hindi,
everywhere,
Tamil,
all like
Telugu, Kannada, 10 languages, right?
Wow.
And interesting that Universal Stories, that thing, right? We actually have 10 shows above 100 crore club, like that. You know, remember the
The
movies?
100 crore club.
100 crore club,
Yeah,
right? We have
yeah.
actually 10 audio shows. It's not even a movie, right? The
So
question.
10 audio shows on Pocket FM have crossed the 100
100
crore milestone.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
The next is going to be.
I think some of them will get 1,000 crore.
Yeah.
To. I mean, because this is by the way, like what Prateek was saying, right? So think of like a show only in US and India. That's it, right?
Yeah.
It's not in Europe, LATAM, Southeast Asia, like Japan, Korea, all of that,
And we
right?
still need to launch.
So when we launch into 80 languages, that
When is that going to happen? When do you launch it?
I think it depends on Prateek, and he can how quickly he can
I think the plan is to sort of like launch it in 6 months, because that's the beauty of AI. I mean, there's no
So
you're
you'll
not going
be
to take.
able to use AI to service 80 languages in 6
I mean, we can serve more, but we're going to start with 80 first.
Okay, 80 in 6 months. That's the kind of turnaround time
Yeah.
that AI is
Yeah.
helping you bridge.
I think initially it used to take, I guess, like 6 months to launch one.
No, 1 year sometimes.
At times 1 year as well. So our like US GTM was 6 to 8 months, and it took an year to create a catalog of 25 content, 50 content, right? But that time is going to be like 2-3 months now.
For Germany, 3 months.
Germany was already like 2 months.
Wow.
So we started Germany, I mean, last October, and today Germany is already at.
I think it's just crossing like 100 CR.
100 CR.
So coming back to then what you see as far as revenue is concerned, but also what you see as costs, because there is all of this AI piece which will, I would imagine, require investment. So what are we talking about in terms of costs? What are we talking about in terms of profits as well?
Yeah, so interestingly, one, I think sort of DNA that's baked in as well amongst all of us is the fact that we have never scaled with bad unit economics. So we're a high gross margin business, right? And ever since we scaled, when we pushed the pedal in 2023, right, we went from like 0 to 2,000 crores in 2 years effectively. But
0 to 1,000 crores in 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have done that with strong unit economics. Our core markets are actually profitable today. So like, for instance, US is generating significant amount of cash every month, right? India is
also becoming profitable this month.
The only markets which are not profitable is the new markets like Europe and so on. Now, I think so we are not worried about profitability at this point at all, because we've already demonstrated that our core markets are actually profitable. Not just like, it's not like meager profitability. These are like 30%, 40% EBITDA businesses. These are not like 5-10% EBITDA, right? And so we, at this point, and AI will further accelerate growth and margins, right? It's both impacting both. So I think from a revenue standpoint, we'll be, as of now, the ambition is $1 billion of
By
revenue.
when?
I mean, we would want to do it ASAP, but
No. What does ASAP mean? ASAP could mean tomorrow also.
but I think 2020, end of 2026, 2027 is where we. I think conservatively, end of 2027 is where we want to get to $1 billion in revenue.
And profitability?
We'll be profitable. As I said, we are already profitable across markets. Now, if we launch new markets, of course, the new markets will take some time to get profitable, but our old markets are already really profitable. So as an org, we are actually operationally profitable today, right? The only sort of, let's say, the small burn that happens is the central sort of costs, right? At an operating level, we are profitable.
I think also like what has happened over the time as we have launched more and more markets is that we have compounded learnings, a lot of learnings, right? I mean, the mistakes that we made in India initially when we launched India, we're not going to make it in Germany now.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Hopefully.
know, right? I mean,
It's highly efficient.
highly efficient. I mean, very, very high.
New
efficient,
markets,
right?
Yeah.
So they're getting to CM3 positive like within 6 months of launch, whereas like these markets took like 2-3 years. So I think that's going to be a game changer for us in terms of scaling very fast, efficiently.
Yeah. I also like think about like launching new markets is that we know what content works, as Rohan mentioned about Saving Nora, right? I mean, like India, we had to figure out Saving Nora, right? We had to do blockbuster commissioning and all, right? But in Germany, we don't have to do that. we already know what works, right? And we just have to sort of like adapt it and then launch it, right?
Yeah.
So there's no additional cost of figuring out things in new markets, right?
I think we're questioning like every quarter, like how big we can be, right? So $1 billion is, of course, what that's that. I mean, that's a genuine milestone.
That's the goal for
at least
the
for the
medium
next
term.
2 years,
Yeah.
right? But after that, of course, we'll evolve because I think we're very clear we want to do this for 10, 20 years, right? So, and I know how entertainment is evolving. We have to just keep evolving with that, to be honest.
You know, that we're also going through a phase where a lot of startups who've seen this kind of phenomenal growth in a very short period of time are also getting picked up, acquired by large companies. I don't know if anyone's come calling yet, but is that something that you would even consider?
No.
No?
No, I mean,
Yeah, I think
certainly.
the vision and the way we are sort of approaching this, I think it's going to be better served if we do it ourselves, is what we feel.
Because I think we want to pocket entertainment, right? So it's very clear, and I think I think we were discussing in the beginning. We have a very strong point of view how to a new way to build an entertainment business, which is more democratic, using AI, helping creators produce high quality content. Sort of, I mean, sort of our vision has evolved to now. How do you democratize content creation using AI? And I think it's way better doing that independently. And to be honest, as individuals, we would want to keep building this the way we want to build this out. Right?
And we are also like, we are leading that sort of like evolution from traditional entertainment businesses to like new age entertainment OS, as Nishan mentioned before, right? So we are leading that.
So, you know, new age companies on the stock market is the new thing. A new age entertainment company on the stock market anytime soon?
I mean, we've not thought deeply about it because we've just been sort of focusing on building the business out. But at some point, we'll definitely think about it. The next few years, maybe next 2 to 3 years, we want to figure that out. But not right now.
Not at the moment. But you know, you said you're generating cash at this point in time. But given the aspiration that you have, do you need more cash? I mean, you've also, by the way, raised just short of $200 million. So that's a lot of cash that you've raised in the last few years.
We are very well capitalized right now. We're not, as I said, we're almost profitable. I mean, org-wide as well. But I think the ambitions have evolved, right? We wanted to first build an audio entertainment platform in India that went to globally. Now we've expanded in US, Europe, LATAM, like Southeast Asia. And then we also now, as we discussed, right? So the playbooks that we have figured out for content can scale for other formats, not just for audio. So
when video likely?
I mean, these are things which we're trying to experiment all the time. But as of now, we have launched novels and comics. And we are experimenting with
comics
the video.
Is because you're a fan.
No, there's a genuine market out there as well. I mean,
also
because there's a genuine, because I think even same with comics, right? Again, the same thing happened in comics, which happened in audio.
Yeah.
No one is paying attention, to be honest, right? It's a huge market, hardly any content out there because of comics actually had a problem. There's actually a tailwind in comics today because of AI. Without AI, we would not have touched it because it's just so hard to produce one episode of comic because of the draw and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. So comics genuinely has a tailwind, right? And what we feel is that we have shows now. I think our edge in any other format is our IPs. So we have Saving Nora, Insta Millionaire, My Empire System, Super Yodha, right? These will work across different formats, right? So I think that's the edge we have when we expand.
You know, I want another number from you because you give us an example of how one of your creators actually funded their sister's marriage on account of the rev share for a story and an episode that they did with you. How much has the creator ecosystem linked to Pocket FM made over the last few years?
So our average earnings per writer is around 10 lakhs.
10 lakh.
So like a writer
So a writer makes about 10 lakhs.
Who is sort of, I think there is.
Over what period of time?
It's an annual.
Okay,
10 lakhs an annual.
Okay.
And then some writers have now made more than 1 crore a year. Making 1 crore a year, right? And this is only expanding, right? Because UGC, we started with UGC, went to PGC, came back again to PGC plus UGC now. It's like a 1-year-old.
So how many of this writer community is based here in India? How much of it is global today?
So I think 70% is India because India got launched first. Ahead of time. But I think now now we have writer ecosystems in US and India. So I think that's going to grow. But I think for the next couple of years, we want to focus more on US and India as a writer community and then sort of expand to Europe and so on because sort of US and India already are giving us really good IPs which travel across the world in different sort of directions. So
Yeah.
So I think
I think we wanted to announce something on this channel. I mean, so we know for the fact. I mean, stories of like travel, it works across format. I think so. We're also going to launch Pocket TV soon.
Okay.
The video platform.
Finally getting into video as well.
Getting into video as well. When is that going to happen?
So basically, I think the insight is that so I mean, think of it as like the reels, the Instagram reels and all that, but in storytelling. 1 minute episode, 2 minute episodes, serialized, like a 50 episode. I'm just like, I start the day, I'm waiting for a bus. I watch 5 episodes, 10 minutes. I'm on the metro. I'll watch another 3-4 episodes, just 2 minute episodes, and bang on. Like every episode is filled with so much drama and all that. I think this we have tested. The PMF is like crazy. It's out of the world, right?
What is the kind of traction that you're seeing?
I mean, it's like, it's obviously it's video, right? So it's crazy.
So interestingly, I think I think we have an interesting insight, right? And like I mean, all of us when you're watching long form video nowadays, I'm skipping.
I think
most of the time I'm skipping.
Or you're like walking away, walking back, all of that.
Nothing really happens. Frankly, it's like nothing really
All
happens.
of these patches where it's very slow.
Yeah, and the thing is that attention span is also
has decreased significantly.
So now for us, I think entertainment is going. I mean, video also is going to go toward the. Short video is taken over, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very quick, engaging. Only thing short video didn't have is fiction.
Yeah.
Is entertainment. That's it. Everything else is sort of there right now. Now, our sort of again the hypothesis here is that serialized short drama would actually work really well.
We're calling it as short drama, actually.
Short drama in a minute.
Yeah, it's like one story is like 50 minutes, 50 episodes of 1 minute.
But to be honest,
you're trying to do to television what Maggie Noodles did to the noodle category, is it?
We're gonna be launching
less by a minute. Less by a minute.
Less by a minute, exactly. Yeah. And microtransactions and all of that. So interestingly, we feel that I don't know, like maybe we'll. I mean.
And this is going to be largely AI.
I mean, for some categories,
but for drama, it's going to be real casting.
I think the fundamentals would be AI, the blockbuster, the commissioning, but the production is going to be a thing. Like,
I mean, this is again 1 year down the line, we don't know, right? So maybe 1 year down the line, we want to make it full AI. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have now figured out AI in audio.
But the cost for this would be higher, I would imagine.
It's not actually, because it's a short video, right?
Right.
It's 9:16, so it's like very character focused. So it's actually shot on a very low cost. I mean, a typical is like $50K to shoot the entire short drama of 1 hour.
Okay.
So it's almost.
And I think there's an interesting insight here as well, that I think most of traditional media is built for TV and big screens. Mobile is like, you don't see resolutions also, frankly. And
so this is mobile first.
Mobile first,
pocket.
Pocket,
accessible entertainment.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when is the launch date?
Hopefully by in May we're gonna fully sort of launch.
I think maybe like June 1st is the launch.
It depends on again Prateek.
The AI and the tech.
The AI and the tech. The pressure is on you. The pressure is on you. So that's the big announcement, and you heard it first right here on the Young Turks podcast, and we look forward to seeing Pocket TV as well. But I want to end by asking the three of you about, it takes a lot to be able to build a business. But to also try and put more energy into the relationship, which keeps the business going, and that's important as well. How much do you consciously sort of spend time on keeping that equation going?
Trips are necessary, right? So I think,
how many trips a year are you still doing?
It's reduced a bit. We should do it more often.
To the marriage, but
once a quarter.
But I think apart
with the spouses or minus the spouses? With the spouses, okay.
But I think, apart from just professional sort of like bonding, I think it's very important to have like personal bonding as well. If we have that, whatever happens in professional, you can just go over a drink and then solve it, right? So I think over the past 10 years, we have built that personal sort of like bond as well, where we're deeply connected.
And I think you understand different styles, right? I mean, everyone has a different style of leadership and approach. So you understand the nuances much better over time. So that also helps.
So I'm going to ask each one of you, and Nishanth, I'll ask you, since you've known him longer than Prateek has, how would you classify his leadership style? What do you think is special about the way that Rohan does things?
No, I think, see, one sort of like really good strength of Rohan is like, when you have a problem, I think we both approach a problem in a very different way, right? So he actually goes very deep, like in the sense that, if I have to, figure out a way to sell, he would actually go and like sit and write himself, do all of that, right? Very in depth, more creative first as well. Whereas I think, and that's very actually been a real big advantage for us, right? The way he approaches is more from, whereas mine is more like a product thinking, right? Like more data first, more product first. So it becomes like sort of complementary, a product and data first, and then more first principles and, creative centric solutions sort of come together like really.
So Nishanth is like really, really like the data driven. Like
He's the data wizard.
he comes up with metrics that you're like, oh, this is actually a good. I mean, I think sometimes like we are data driven organization, right? We track data across content, marketing, all of that. So how you define your metrics actually makes a big impact.
Yeah.
Like if you're choosing the wrong metric, if you're looking at the wrong metrics, you'll actually make wrong decisions, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, Nishanth comes up with these really interesting metrics. I'm like, oh, I've not thought about this metric.
And then he brings up with that emotions, like sort of that together.
So you're the emotions guy on this
The EQ.
couch, huh?
Maybe.
Higher on EQ.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So
And Pradeep brings in the technology.
Yeah. So I'm more like execution sort of like first. I mean, so I see like how do we like get to the truth faster, right? So that's more sort of like working style, right? But yeah,
And I think Prateek is like does like so. So when we started Pocket FM, our app got coded in 2 weeks, and like just 2 weeks we launched. Like the speed to market, like the sheet to ship, even in AI, like let aside traditional engineering, right? Even on the AI front, in the last 1 year itself, right? Just one and a half years.
Zuckerberg's loss has been pocket gain.
Otherwise, you would have been shipping.
Sitting somewhere in Palo Alto.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I would imagine. But again, and I don't know how many people know this, but the three of them lived together till they decided to get married, and COVID would have been a difficult year for everybody, but that must have also kind of cemented the bonds that you have, because you lived together in the lockdown, kind of spent all your time with each other. Were there points of frustration, or did you how did you cope with that experience of being together 24/7?
We used to always live together since 2018. So when we moved to Bangalore from Delhi. Like we moved to Bangalore because we felt that's where startups should be built. And
you still feel that way?
Yeah. For sure.
Bangalore rules
For sure, right? And I think we've always been living together since after they got married. All of a sudden, so that's
all of a sudden.
I got
didn't prepare you for the shock.
Prepared. I got kicked out anyway, and but I think it was really the advantages were we were just at home locked, right? We can't step out. You had to divide like responsibilities of who cleans, who cooks and all. We got to know who's a good chef and all that. But yeah, I think there was really a good stage. I think we brainstormed a lot 24/7. The problem with this, only problem was we should talk work 24/7.
Nothing else, right?
Because you see someone in the hall, we're like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But I think that helped. It led to faster iterations, faster decision making. And brought us closer.
And also, I think the way we sort of wired is all three of us DNAs. If there's a conflict, we always say, let's do both. Let's experiment and in a very low cost way. I think that DNA has actually got into the company as well. At any level, anybody can actually go and say, I want to do this experiment. Nobody's going to stop in the company. I think we never have this like, the manager is going to tell something, I want to follow that. So I think that sort of DNA is sort of, built in the company.
Interestingly, writers love us, like the content team, because always in their previous jobs, they used to have to listen to their managers. Their managers telling me this idea won't work. Even in content, one is product engineering, everyone does experiments, right?
Yeah.
We do experiments in content itself, like some writer, like there's some editorial head wants to do an experiment to write the show in a different way. We actually, I mean, sometimes one show has like 5-6 versions live on the platform. So it's very interesting. Like, no one does that. Netflix won't have 10 different, any streaming platform won't have 10 different versions of a movie, to be honest, right? But we have like a few versions of an audio series. So I think it's very like, if you have interestingly, like we've also started doing this, that if someone has a new idea about any new business as well, so we write a seat check. We like, you present us pictures, we'll try to give you a seat check, not a big one, but we'll give you a reasonable size seat check. You prove us that this is actually workable, and then you get a series A and series B and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think a lot of now like folks reach out to us directly, right, to implement their ideas as well. And I think one of the beauty of having 3 founders is that if you have an idea, right, the execution path could be different. So all 3 of us can try a different execution path, and then make sure that one of that
arrive at whatever's working the best. And that kind of settles any disagreement or conflict that may arise. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with the 3 of you. Thank you so much for coming together for the very first time to talk to us about the Pocket FM story. More importantly, taking us through what next as far as Pocket FM is concerned. We wish you the very best of luck with Pocket TV and all the other markets that you intend to go into, and we'll be tracking that very closely as you approach that $1 billion aspiration that you've set for yourself. This is, as they put it, a Make in India for the world story, quite truly. And it's been a story of perseverance, patience, plenty of grit and determination, and very, very high on conviction. From all of us here on the Young Turks Reloaded podcast, thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV 18 on all of our digital platforms.